All right. Good morning, everybody. I can see we're all in here. Well done, well done, well done for showing up on time. I know we've got quite a couple of people who are tuning in via social media. Welcome to you as well. Those who didn't get quite all the way into the room, we are glad to have you all here. Excellent, excellent, excellent. It is a pleasure to be hosting you as Centonomy, and we would be glad if you don't mind. Everyone who's actually in the room, if you can, just type in the chat box. For those on social media, if you can use the comment section and just let us know where you're tuning in from. We love to have some context of the folks that we're talking to. And so if you can use the chat box kindly, just type in there and say, hey, hi, everybody, to the team, and just let everyone know, hey, I'm in Nairobi, or I'm in whatever country or town you are in. It would be great. Yes, like that. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you so much. Excellent. Some people can see we're mostly around the Nairobi metropolis, so that's great. Excellent. Welcome, Liz. Thank you so much. Nzilani also welcome. Franklin, karibu, karibu. Sumaya, welcome as well. Carlos, you're the first one who is on another coast of this country. Welcome so much, Carlos, all the way from Kisumu City. Janet, welcome from Mombasa. Well done. So across Kenya so far. Anyone from outside of the country would be great. I can't see the social media, so I know my team will let me know in case there's anyone on social media who's tuning in from somewhere else. It would be great, 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 great to know. Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Caleb, I'm pretty sure that must be a typo because I'm not sure of a city called Nairobi, but I'm sure it is a Nairobi, unless it's a hybrid of some of the names that we've got there. Excellent. Hello, Nicholas in Nyandaro, karibu, karibu, Cynthia in Mombasa as well. So yeah, so across Kenya, no one from outside the country, I might feel very comfortable and I can now speak like a Kenyan, you know, because sometimes when we're running this, these programs, we do recognize that we have people from around the world who actually tune in and who will be viewing at some point. So I'll watch myself. I won't be too Kenyan as we go through this session. But welcome, welcome everybody. Thank you for those who managed to respond. Benedet and Riruta, we are so glad to have you here. Today, it's the Centonomy Entrepreneur, and we are dealing with this idea of diagnosing your business. I think it's really, this is something that we've been looking forward to doing for a couple of months because there is, how would I put it? If you're going to solve a problem, you first have to define it. And that's what the process of diagnosing your business is. If you're going to solve a problem, you first have to define what the problem is. And in business, because there are so many moving parts, and I think this is what sometimes can be overwhelming as an entrepreneur. It can be overwhelming because there are many moving parts, and keeping your eye on each one of them is quite a process, right? And so it's difficult to know what is the actual thing that is the problem. And so this, when we talked about this analogy of diagnosing your business, it came from the medical field. If you think about it, when you go in to see a doctor, yes, you might be having a sore throat or whatever it is, that whatever symptoms you came in with, a headache or whatever it is, right? And when you walk into the doctor's office, you generally don't start by telling them I have a headache. No, that's not where the discussion begins. They have what they call a triage space, isn't it? And in triage, what are they trying to do? They're trying to figure out what is your current state. Are you an emergency patient? Are you a patient who can be dealt with in a couple of minutes? They're trying to see who should take priority because there are multiple things that are going on. And while they are doing that, they first of all take your vitals. So there are certain things. If your heart is not beating properly, if you're not aware and alert, and you're able to respond to stimuli, and your brain is functioning at the same time, then that becomes the priority over your headache or anything else that is going on. And so that triage and being able to take your vital signs and that's what we're going to discuss today, some of the vital signs of your business. If those are not working, doesn't matter what other sicknesses you have, they first have to get your vitals to be stabilized. Then we deal with the rest of the problems. And so this idea of trying to figure out what is the starting point, where do we begin to engage as far as our businesses are concerned, is why we chose this theme of diagnosing your business. Because if you start off trying to deal with some symptoms and the vital signs, the lifeblood of your business is not, listen, I don't want to be as graphic, but sometimes we have to be graphic, isn't it? If somebody is bleeding out, like if there's somewhere where there's bleeding and the blood is flowing out, even if they say I'm having a pain on this side of my head, you first have to deal with the blood, because if all the blood goes out, the pain will not, you can't solve the pain problem, because it'll end up in death. And many times in our businesses, it's the same thing. There is lifeblood flowing out of your business, whether it's cash, whether it is customers, those fundamental parts of your business, the vital signs of your business. If they are not working, we first have to deal with those before we start talking about, how you're going to deal with, what would you call it? Company culture. You know, somebody's, the relationships within the team. Now, I'm not saying that those things are not important. I am just saying they are not vital. In fact, this is similar, if you think about it, to what we train in the Centonomy 101 program, where we talk about budgeting, and it's similar to the budgeting that we do here. In your budget, this is something that you are aware of, but if you're not, please pay attention to it. At Centonomy, we train about the ABC budget. Okay, and the ABC budget separates the items within your spending plan between what is essential, lifeblood, vital signs, essential for your budget. So for personal budget, you're talking about, shelter, food, education. Those are the main things that you're going to talk about. And then you have what things are important, but they are not essential. Like if you're hemorrhaging money at some point, you're overspending, let's say, within your business. And I told you, I'm using these analogies for a reason. I want us to think about it at that level of priority within your business. Where, for instance, if there's an area in your business where you're overspending and you can't be able to stop that overspending, that's the first thing that you need to deal with as a priority before you come and deal with the relationships, let's say, within that business. Although the relationships are vital. Why? Because they have an effect on productivity. And so it's not that we're not going to deal with relationships. It's just that, how do you prioritize, diagnose your business? That's what we want to discuss today. So if this is going to be an effective session, I highly encourage you to have a notebook and pen and write down the main points that are coming through, because they're the ones that are going to assist you in trying to think through with clarity, where are the issues that I am facing? And we're going to highlight issues as we go through, and we're going to break them down. We're going to try and use some of the tools that we use in the program to help you. But I want to be very clear up at the top of this session. This is simply to get us into a space in which we are thinking and acting in a specific direction. I want to be very clear. In a 2-hour session that we're going to go through right now, I simply do not have the time to unpack all the issues that you're going to face within your business. And so I am here to tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, in as much as we like to do these webinars because awareness is a big part of our strategy, but also we have to have some impact on a broader spectrum. This will go onto our social media and other places that we're going to do, because we need more and more businesses in Africa, especially, to begin to become profitable and to become what we would consider sustainable over time, and the dynasties that we're talking about. We have to change the culture of business in Africa, and it starts by understanding what are the fundamentals, the vital signs of your business, and then what other areas are important for your business, and then where else can you have value addition as far as your business is concerned. That is our goal. So if you've never met before, I apologize. I get excited when we're starting sessions like this, because Entrepreneurs, you are the engine of our economies. And if you don't get this right, then there's nothing else that the countries can be able to do, because you are the ones that actually generate value in the economy. Entrepreneurs, let me just help you. The government does not produce. You do. And if you are not producing effectively, then we cannot begin to grow beyond that point. I told you I get so excited. Wedaka Gatume is my name. I'll be taking you through this session as a facilitator. I also serve as CEO of the company Centonomy Limited, and we are committed to helping you generate wealth. We want, and our mission is to shift mindsets so that purposeful people like you who show up on a Saturday for a session like this on building businesses and who come into classes so that their businesses do not fail. We have too many failing businesses, and we don't want you to be one of those failing businesses. And I'm sure you as an individual don't want to fail at the business that you're running. We want you to be able to create wealth and to live abundantly. And the entrepreneur program is unique because the wealth creation is built into the business. If you're running a business that is generating a profit, which you're about to discuss just now, if you're running a business that's generating a profit, then you're good. You're generating wealth. You're becoming wealthy. That one is very clear. You have made your investment in business, and that is the asset that is going to generate for you wealth. But the second part of it, I think, is even more wonderful. And it is the abundant life. Because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, I know some of us will start a business, not in an area necessarily of our passion, but because there's an opportunity there, and that's a valid business. But what it is that often when it comes to business, it is closely linked to our personal values and our ambitions. And I know about you because you think here's opportunity, and your personal value is to say, can I be able to fill that? How can I pour myself out into this world in the way that we're talking about? And it is through your business, ladies and gentlemen, it is through your business. So I'm excited to be dealing with this idea of diagnosing your business, because if we can get to the actual root of the problem, then we can solve it. But if you don't know what the problem is, then you're just poking around in the dark, and that's what we don't want anymore. So welcome, Karibu. Thank you to all those. Hey, Lydia, I've just seen that in the chat box. Welcome all the way from Gong. So we are well represented across. And as I said, those who are on social media, just do type in the chat box so that we can be able to have as meaningful a discussion as possible across the board. Just as we start up, as I said, I'm setting the stage. Now we're going to open up some of the tools and begin to see what's the diagnosis process. Remember, we talked about this, ladies and gentlemen, when we said, when you go into a doctor's office, the doctor doesn't first ask you what you're feeling, unless it is an emergency where you can't respond. And they'll still, as much as possible, try to see if you can respond. But they start with triage. They check your vital signs. How is your heartbeat? How's your blood pressure? What is your weight? All those things, so that now when we are speaking, we have some context. And we're going to do that. We're going to go through that process. Then once you've gotten there, now they ask you, so what are you feeling? There's this symptom over here. This is doing whatever it is that you're feeling. Then they address that issue. So we're going to go through that process in this session. Pen and paper next to you so that we can be able to get there. In case you don't know about it, we run a program called the Centonomy Entrepreneur. It is a 14-week online program that helps you build a great business. And as I said, we're on a mission to shift the culture of business in Africa, because you are the drivers of our economy, and we don't want you to fail. When you hear of statistics like half the businesses, 50% of businesses fail within their first 5 years, we don't want you to be one of those. We want you to have the skill set to make sure that you're able to overcome that. You're not a failure, and we don't want you to fail at business. So get the structure right, get the strategies correct, raise the amount of capital that you need, and then get the fundamentals, the accounting, the tax, the legal procedures in place so that your business has the foundation on which it can be able to build. The classes start on 8th of February. And the fee is only $57,000, which you can pay in installment. And I'm going to encourage you today to register at this discounted amount of 1,000 bob today. We usually do it at 2,000 shillings. For those who are out of the country, I believe it's $10 that you'll be registering at. And remember, this is just during our events is when we offer this discount, because we recognize you have given us your time. We want to give you some value for that. So as you can see, and we'll go through this a bit later on, these are the modules that you go through, the mindset of an entrepreneur, because we recognize unless we have the right mindset, many times you can't address the issues that are beyond there. How do you find opportunities, which we'll discuss a little bit today? Fear and vision, because listen, it's competition. I like to say that business is a contact sport. And so there's fear, but you can also be able to overcome with that vision that you want. And then we talk about some of the lifeblood issues, like how do you actually make money in business? What's the process? How do you extract the value from what you're discussing? Structure and strategy, marketing, digital marketing, all these taught by industry experts, but we also look for industry experts who are also entrepreneurs. Because there's head knowledge, there's book knowledge, and then there's experience. And so when we bring our trainers in, we make sure that, have you run a business? Because when you're talking to an entrepreneur, please don't tell us theory. Tell us what has worked for you. That's what we want. So it's practical in what we're talking about. We talk about money, working capital, raising capital, and then finances. Again, as you can see, we spend quite a bit of time talking about money because that's the different, in case you didn't know, that's the differentiator in business, right? And then we have the legal procedures, accounting, one more time, and personal finance for you, because we recognize that many times, if your personal life is out of order, the likelihood of your business being out of order is also the same, okay? And I'm saying this because I've had personal experience with that as well, where your business money, your personal money, they are so intertwined, you don't know which is which, and it's hard to have control, and we're trying to build in the control that we want and build that abundant life. So please prepare for that. As I told you, you can be able to pay for it in installments, monthly installments. So the first month is 20K, and then 17,000 at the end. You can pay via M-Pesa. And this is a great time to register, because you have some time before the class begins, as we said, on the 8th of February. So you have time to prepare. You can register now and you begin to raise the funds as we get to that same kind of place. I'll tell you a little bit more about the program as we go forward, but I want to say this, I'm so excited to have you here. Let's talk about diagnosing your business now. So I want us to write this down. We're going through a process. We're going through the details of the triage of getting into diagnosing your business. So I hope you're with me and you're ready. If you are with me, you can give me a thumbs up, because in a room, you would have been able to say yes. Online now, we have to respond differently. Excellent. Somebody gave me a hand up, but I said that if you look, there's reaction somewhere, I think. If you look somewhere, I'm sure you can be able to. If you can't even just that, there we go. Hey. Good. Thank you so much. All right. So first of all, let's write down some of the fundamental issues. Then we use some tools that will help us to begin to diagnose our business. Good, Paris. Thank you, Priscilla. Hey, people are ready. Let's write together. Number one, write this down. The purpose of any business, write it down. The purpose of any business is to generate a profit. The purpose of any business is to generate a profit. And that's the differentiators. We're going to rate some of the fundamental issues, because this is what now you are going to go and assess your business-wise. This is how you're going to diagnose. Just the same way as you come into the room and the doctor will say, first we take your blood pressure. If your blood pressure is not working, or what's the other thing that they check when you come in at the same time, or your temperature, all those other things, those are the things they address first. First of all, the aim of every business is to generate a profit. And I said a business. Now, there are non-governmental organizations, there are non-profit organizations. Their primary purpose is different. I don't know about you, but the ones who come into this room generally are looking to make a profit. And that's the differentiator, because profit shows that you have produced a product or a service over which you are able to sell into the market, over which at a price at which there is a gap, and you're able to say that you have sold it for more than it cost to produce. That's profit. And we're going to discuss what it means to say cost to produce. Now, that's one of the key areas that we're going to discuss. So number one, please, the aim of every business is to produce a profit. So here's the thing. if your business is not profitable, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk about how we measure whether the business is profitable or not. We are not having there's no other discussion. That is a fundamental, lifeblood, vital sign that the business has an issue. Okay? But where does that begin? Where does that process or idea of producing a profit come from? You have to be producing and selling a product or a service that actually affects the lives of your potential customers. And that becomes even more vital than the profit. So first of all, are you offering something, a product or a service that actually meets the needs of your customer? That's the first place. Because that's the thing upon which you based your business, isn't it? That you're going to try now, you're going to organize the business in such a way that you can offer this product or service that you believe that was vital for the market, to the market at a price which is manageable. So can we start there? Let's start with, this probably is the most fundamental level of the discussion that we're going to have. Hey, I can see all the thumbs up that are coming through. I appreciate it. Let's have a bit of a detailed discussion around it. So one of the tools that we found to be very useful, if you don't mind, let me get this up on the screen. There we go. For trying to diagnose this is part of one of the tools that we train on in the Centonomy Entrepreneur program. We have a tool that was launched by a gentleman called Osterwald. Brilliant, brilliant guy. If you want to look for that book, the book that he has written is called The Business Model Generation. But he came up with a tool that helps businesses to assess themselves, whether they have value that they're adding into the market. And it's called the Business Model Canvas. And we use that in the training in the Centonomy Entrepreneur program. It's a whole module that we go through, and we are able to actually break it down. So that is the overall picture of your business that you can be able to see on one page. And it's illustrated. You can see it looks kind of like this rectangle here at the top. We don't have time, as I said, in a 2-hour session like this to go through the details of that, but we have time to be able to highlight 2 of the areas that are fundamental that we build on. So when you come into the class, you will be able to very quickly plug in these 2 areas as we're discussing it on a more broader scale. And the 2 areas are your value proposition. Can you see it here on the top left? And the customer segment. So we discussed this issue of who are you helping with the product or the service that you're bringing? But can I give you some insights that we don't normally discuss outside of the class? But I want to show you how detailed the sessions are. I want you to understand that there is a difference between your value proposition and your product or your service. Okay, we're trying to define what this thing is. Can I give you an illustration that will help you to understand real quick? This is an illustration that we use in the class here. So you're getting some insights already as we go forward. I can today go out onto the streets of Nairobi, and I can go to the main streets. And if you walk around, you will be able to find a product called a watch, like the watch that I'm wearing here on my hand. And I'll be able to buy a watch to tell time at a value of about $1 US dollar. Maybe just over 100 shillings. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit ambitious. No. I've actually seen some. Even online, I've seen some, especially the kiddie digital watches, right? Probably the band can't even fit around my wrist. But guess what? If I simply wanted something to tell time, I can buy a product called a watch on the streets of Nairobi for $1. Okay, 100 shillings. Plus, maybe 120, 150, depending on what the exchange rate is. I could also go to a high-end jeweler, right? And this one came to my mind because I was watching a video of one of the, I guess, the most famous boxers in the world, a gentleman called Floyd Mayweather. Some of you may know him. He's an excellent boxer, one of the highest paid boxers in the world, and he was doing an interview. And then the interviewer happened to notice the watch that Floyd was wearing, and it obviously did not look like mine because it was completely diamond encrusted, okay? And the interview just said, oh, that's a nice watch that you're wearing right there. How much did that cost? And Floyd turned over to him and said, $18 million. What in the, what? The watch that he was wearing on his hand cost $18 million. I can buy a watch on the street to tell time for $1, but he bought a watch with all the diamonds and everything, $18 million. Now, my question to you, and you can answer this in the chat box, please do answer it real quick. Was Floyd buying that watch to tell time, ladies and gentlemen? Was he? No. So thank you so much, Irene. Not only, so what do you think he even looks? He probably uses his phone like the rest of us now, the way we have been taught. Look, I mean, if you're sometimes I find myself, I've got my watch on, but because I'm so used to being on my phone, it's now 10:27 East African time. Lydia, you're right. So here's the idea of what we understand by value proposition. They're selling the same product. Now, obviously, there are differences in the way the product has been produced. One is plastic with a digital in. So functionally, and this is one of the issues that we're going to try and address here. Functionally, the actual job that you wanted to get done, they do the same thing. He can look at his watch just the same way as I'm looking at mine or that $1 watch and tell time. That's one of the functions of a watch. But here's the difference, ladies and gentlemen, just like Lydia has written in the chat box there, Desire as well. This is Ruben, Desire Kamanzi, has also written there, it's doing another job. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's doing another job for him. And you have identified what that job is. In fact, that primary job of telling time, it may not even be the thing that is important. What's the other job? It is setting Caleb, thank you so much. It's saying, look at me. I have achieved a certain level. It is setting me aside. It is prestige. It is showing social status. And so the value proposition of that watch that he is wearing and the value proposition of the watch that I can buy on the street are completely different. Let's talk about that cheap the cheap watch that I can buy on the street. Why would I buy that watch? What is the value that I'm getting from buying that watch on the street? Let's see if guys can pick that up. Real quick, in the chat box, I need that response. And Steve and everyone from my team, if you see responses on social media, you can be able to get me that response so I can respond to those guys as well. Great. So, no, I'm talking now about, ladies and gentlemen, when I buy that watch on the street for $1, what do you think is the value proposition I'm going to get? The one that's on the street, the cheap one. What's the value I'm getting from it? Let's go. We're almost there. We're almost there. There we go. Got it. Irene got it. Who else got it there? It went so fast. James, you got it. And Irene, you got it. And Desire, you got it. The value I'm looking for is affordability. It's cheap, access. I get it. I don't have to think about it. I'm not even worried if it gets scratched at all or anything like that. I'm simply looking for a watch at the cheapest price that I can get. And that is that is what we are talking about when we talk about the idea of value proposition. Now that you guys are amazing. And let me tell you, this is why I love talking to entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are thinkers, you're problem solvers. And we don't want you to fail at business just because you didn't have the fundamentals of business. We want you to succeed at the business so that your business can become something that you're going to get in, that you're going to get value from. We don't want you to fail. And many times the businesses fail not because the entrepreneur is not creative, is not a problem solver. They simply don't have the tool set. They have never seen the fundamentals upon which they would build a successful business. So we want to give you those fundamentals. So can we have a discussion about that for a second? Here we go. So look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is called the value proposition canvas, and it helps us to understand how we can begin to match our value proposition to a customer segment so that they properly overlap. And then you know you have a product fit that is going to allow you to now search for profitability. So let's talk about it a little bit. We've done this before. In case you've done it before, don't worry, we're going to get into a few other areas that are there, but it's useful even for us to begin to think about. So you're trying to match a customer to the product and services, the value proposition that you're offering, okay? So the customer has specific jobs that they want to do. Now, you guys, we noticed this. There are certain jobs that they want to do. Now, please understand that jobs don't mean just the functionality. You guys have described a different job that Floyd Mayweather's watch was doing for him. That the job of the watch was to give him status and prestige. You guys got it right. So it's not just the functionality of it. Ladies and gentlemen, come on, let's look about, and it's really good to look at the spectrum of products and services. There are certain car brands, for instance, I'm not going to speak about them, but you know, here's a cheap car, here's an expensive car. Both cars will get you from point A to B. So that's one job, transport. But come on, ladies and gentlemen, for many of us, cars don't just serve the transport problem or job, they also solve the job of prestige, the job of convenience. So what is the job your customer is trying to achieve through this product or service that you're offering? What is it? And it's services as well. Think about it like this. Let's say the fitness industry. The fitness industry, we've got people who are doing home fitness programs. They offer their training on YouTube for free. Many of us have been using it ever since the pandemic came on. And so that's one way they're offering fitness and health. But there are gymnasiums, and some of you may be running gyms, okay? And the difference is in the gym, now you have machines, you have a space, you have people who are going to train you. And you can see that there's a difference, not just in the functionality, but also the human side of it. So in a gym, you're getting a personal experience. You're getting a communal experience. And that's a job that they're trying to do. So when you're trying to understand the jobs the customer is trying to achieve, it's not just the functionality of the product or the service, but what other things through that product or service they're able to achieve. So when you think about now when you match it on this other side to the products and services, you have to think, what are the jobs the customer is trying to do? So jobs is not just functionality, but other areas that will be affected by the products and services being used. There are certain gains that the customer is trying to get out of it. Now, these are all related. It's hard to separate them into very clear segments, but it's just trying to get you to think, is it a positive social gain? Is it functionality beyond that? So now if you look at some of the watches that give you a compass, they give you this, and they give you ruggedness so that you're able to go off, you know, into the wild and be able to survive for a couple of years. So this person is trying to see, can this watch serve me in a different space? Can this watch be able to take me? Many of us, I know this is a discussion that we have, especially around cars, because we talk about cars. Oh, but I can't use that car to travel up country. You see, that's a gain that you want to do. I want to be able to travel long distances. So you need to identify what are some of the things that this customer is trying to get out of it. Is it ease of access? Is it affordability? Those are kind of things that we're going to find. And you're going to match those to gain creators within your product. And if you're able to do that, if you're able to match them effectively, and there's that direct overlap, now you're beginning to see that you have a product fit for the customer segment. There are also some pains that you're trying to relieve. So in the watch experience that we're talking about here, if the watch experience, let's talk about some of the pains. If I'm walking around and I'm trying to get to an appointment on time, I need to have a watch that tells me what time it is to be able to get to the things. So that's a pain. I can't use the clock or the other thing that is out there. That's a pain I'm trying to relieve, isn't it? When somebody is purchasing that cheap watch on the side of the road, just like I was describing before, when they're purchasing it, they've also recognized that, hey, look, when I go to the supermarket or I go to the mall, the cost of the watches that are there are too expensive. That is a pain. So if I offer a watch at a price point that matters to this customer segment, Please understand, all customers are not the same. I'm about to describe that for you. But if I provide a watch at this customer, at the level of price for this customer segment, I am going to relieve that pain of overpriced, in their opinion, watches that are out there. So by selecting a price point that allows them, I'm relieving the pain of expensive watches. Can I give you another? Do you see, we have to change the customer segment here. Now talk about that high end like Floyd Mayweather. He's trying to see, let's say, a pain that is in that case. And he's trying to see, how can I show my status without having to tell people I have $18 million in my account just for that? What can I do to do so? That's a pain for him. That's a pain I think we would like to have, isn't it? I don't know about you, but I'd like to have that pain. And so he's trying to solve that by saying, hey, by purchasing this watch, it's a simple statement. Just people can be able to see that's something that's different. I'm not in the same league. So as an entrepreneur, if you don't have a package of products and services that is matched to the customer segment that you're going to do, that's one of the most fundamental points. Is the product or service actually affecting a customer segment that is clear? Because if there's no benefit to that, we cannot discuss your staffing issues. We cannot discuss other issues around the financial management. Do you have a product or service that actually works for the customer? Number one, remember we're in triage. We're building up from the fundamentals, and we're going to get up to the stage at which we're able to help beyond that point. Before I move on from this, ladies and gentlemen, I know this is something that we get into a lot more detail in, as I said in the program, when we're describing now the business model canvas, because it has many other segments to it, not just the customer, many other areas to it, modules of it. Not just the customer segment and value proposition. We'll get into a lot more detail. But I need you to start thinking about this from this perspective. Do you understand when we say customer segment, there are specific customers that you're speaking to based on the product or service that you're offering? This is something that was a hard lesson for us here at Centonomy, where we recognized, we do understand and we believe with all our hearts that the knowledge and the offering that we have as Centonomy is for every human being on earth, because everyone can be able to manage their money better, manage their businesses better, build an abundant wealth creating life. We believe everyone can do that. And so when a couple of years before we learned these processes, and we try as much as possible to train on things that we're actually doing ourselves as a company. When we went through this training and we kind of got to this point of understanding customer segments, it was a rude shock for us that in as much as we believe our product and service are for everybody, not everybody buys and comes into a session like this. How do we know this? We've sent this material out and the invitations to so many different people. That's what it is. We did. You're not the only ones who received this, but guess what? The likelihood is that you are within our customer segment bracket. You fit a specific customer segment, and that's why we speak to you in a certain way. We try as much as possible to respond to the specific issues that we believe you are going through. And so we have identified an area in which this is where we are most likely going to get customers who can first afford the product that we're offering. You see, listen, it's all linked. If you're speaking to, listen, if no matter how wonderful the salesperson is, the advertising is, the processes behind it are, the personnel who came to speak to me, the management of the company that sold Floyd Mayweather that watch for $18 million. No matter how they tried to sell me that watch today, I can't buy it. I am simply not in their customer segment. And it's not just about price, it's also about other factors, isn't it? Let me explain to you so that you understand that I'm not beating myself down, and I'm not beating you down either. I am also, ladies and gentlemen, not in the customer segment of the guy who's selling the $1 watch the 150 shilling watch on the street. I'm not, okay? I assure you this watch that I'm wearing is not 150 bob, okay? Why? Because even I have other functions. I know, look, I hope you understand. I'm using this to give as an example. Even this watch that I'm wearing is a status symbol for me. I didn't want to have to admit that here on screen, but I have to do it because I'm trying to illustrate the problem. I am not in the customer segment of the guy selling the cheap watch on the street. So there is a watch company from where I bought this, who they recognize me as their customer segment. So the watch is within my range of affordability, but it also gives me the status that I want. Because I could have bought a cheaper watch if I just simply wanted to buy time. But remember, your watch is also a piece of jewelry, isn't it? So it's doing that work for me. I am within the customer segment. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have not yet done this analysis of your products and services, the value proposition, and the customer segment to see that they are linked and they're perfect fit, this is one of those fundamental triage vital signs that your business must begin to deal with before we can be able to overcome. We are diagnosing your business. Do you have the right product or service for the market? And this can be a hard thing. I'm telling you, it can be a tough thing to come to terms with and to be able to say, wow, I'm selling the wrong product, or the product is not quite what it is, or I'm selling it to the wrong people. And if you recognize that I'm selling to the wrong people, I have not found the right people, then you have to adjust and to find those people. This is the part of business. We don't just sit and wait. We go and find our customers. In fact, that's one of the main areas that we talk about at the beginning of the program when we talk about even just making that first sale. It is to say, hey, look, there's a group of people, that some customers who are out there in this world who I need to find, and where they are, I'm going to go and get them. So I know social media has made it easier with a lot of profiling and all those various things, but the work to recognize who the customer is yours and your team's. And if you don't do it, this is one of the vital signs that is going to destroy your business, and you didn't know about it. And as I said before, we don't want you to fail. You don't want to fail either. And one of the core areas, the fundamental issues that brings failure, is a mismatch, even a slight mismatch between products and services. Between value proposition and customer segment. You want a perfect fit. And as the customer moves, you can see what I'm doing. As the customer moves to a new area, you need to adjust or to find a new customer. Have we thought about that? Before I move on, I realize we'll be moving quite quick to different areas. And if we wait until the end, you might forget. Here's your opportunity. If you have a question around this area of customer segment, value proposition, the product and services that we're talking about as one of the triage areas, kindly type in the chat box, and not in the chat box, in the Q&A or in the comments. If you're on social media, type your question now. We try to address that before we move on to the next part. So is there a fit between your business and the value that you're offering? If you have a question, type it in the chat box. And those of you who are brave enough, you can probably raise your hand. I'd love to hear a voice because I've been hearing my own voice for a while. If you raise your hand, I can call you out and we can have a chat as well. The silence is telling me that this is abundantly clear. Very good, very good. So here we are. Lydia, you wanted to say something? Kindly, just unmute, ask your question. Here we go. And this is how we run the classes in Centonomy. They're interactive. You're able to engage the trainer at all the time. And even after the sessions, you're able to reach out to our trainers and be able to get the information that you need. Lydia, you raised your hand. You can unmute and be able to ask your question. While I look at the other ones that are going through as well. Mercy, you also have a question. While Lydia is trying to find the unmute button, Mercy, kindly unmute and ask your question before we move on. I have just, how many minutes? Another 4 minutes for this Q&A part before we move on to the next part. So Mercy, I have given permission, so you're able to unmute and be able to ask your question. Go ahead, Mercy. Or Lydia, whoever gets there first. Hi, Mercy, there you are. Good.
Yeah, now this is really outside the customer segment.
That's okay.
I wanted to know on the program, can somebody register for just a specific module?
Okay, no. So let me respond to you very quickly on that. Okay. We believe there is a flow. So we found sometimes when we bring people, we've tested this. Remember what we are talking to you about, we have done ourselves. We found that many times when people come in and they don't have the context of the areas that have been discussed before, it is out of context. And then you're trying to explain something that should have been explained 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks before, and it becomes a real mess in trying to do that. So we have open sessions like this where we discuss a specific area. That way there's no context you're coming from. So as you can see, I'm starting from the most fundamental and building from that. But in the class, it is too detailed for us to be able to jump in and out. Great question. Good, good, good. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marseille. I can see Millicent saying, how do you move from one segment to another, preferably low segment to higher customers? So, lovely question. This is someone who's thinking intuitively about the business itself. So, remember, you're offering the value proposition that you offer must match that customer segment. So, Millicent, as you're thinking about it, you are defining what is this customer segment. What is their expectation? If their expectation is quality, the expectation is value that you can be able to change. Let's say it's a leather watch or it's a titanium body. I'm using the watch example as a thing. You are identifying what their needs are. How much are they willing to pay? What is their price point? What are the other things that are going to do? You are defining the customer segment. And then you now look at your group of products and services. Do they match? And if they don't, you make the adjustments so that they match. That means if you have been producing a cheap watch, now you have to change the actual materials in that watch. All right? So you change it to leather and titanium, whereas you're using plastic and plastic, or fabric, whatever it is. Now you change it to leather and titanium or diamonds, whatever it is that's going to cost. So that's one thing. So you change the actual product, Millicent. The second thing that you now have to do is change, Millicent, and everybody pay attention to this. You must change your communication. Millicent, can I show you how that works, if you don't mind for a second? Your question is brilliant. I want to use a car company so that we understand. Hopefully that we're able to get this across. Watch this, ladies and gentlemen. There's a car company called Toyota. Toyota is one of the biggest manufacturers in the world, all right? There's a car company called Toyota, but they don't have one brand, in case you didn't know. Now we're beginning to talk about, remember, communication and branding. Millicent, your fundamental question is going to change the way that you run your business. Watch this, Millicent. When Toyota was trying to move to a new customer segment, they recognized that affordability, reliability, quality was what was associated with the brand of Toyota. But they wanted to move into a luxury car market. The same company is now moving into a luxury car market. Ladies and gentlemen, what brand, in the chat box, because I know people understand this, what brand did Toyota start using to be able to do this? Terence, on the same road, you have a Land Cruiser VX, whatever it is, and it's actually almost the same car. It's just the design has been done differently, some of the materials on the inside, but it is a Lexus 570. Millicent, do you see that Toyota, in order to change customer segment, had to change their communication strategy? And this is what I'm talking about. It is so nuanced, and that's your question, Millicent, is so brilliant because it will allow us now to begin to see. Thank you so much for all those who are answering that question. It allows us to now see, and this is why we address it within the program. Let me just show you those modules within the program. We spend time around this. When we get into marketing, marketing is now, obviously, you know the 4 Ps of marketing and all those various areas, but it's really trying to understand who is your customer and how do you speak to them. So you'll find Toyota did it with Toyota and Lexus. Other companies have done it as well. You have, I believe it's Nissan has Infinity as one of their brands. So it's a Nissan product, but they're speaking to completely different customer segments by branding it differently. So you'll see the advertising around it. You'll see the marketing around it. The design element of Lexus and Toyota and Infinity and Nissan are completely different, but it's the same customer. I mean, sorry, it's the same product. The same company. Boy, I had too many things in my mind at that moment. It's the same company, but they're offering to 2 different customer segments. And so they rebrand completely. In fact, sometimes they even try and separate the companies. I'll give you an example. A company like BMW, yes, let me just ensure that I am saying the correct thing, have purchased other brands that give them a different customer segment. So for instance, BMW owns, I believe, Land Rover and also Rolls-Royce. Same company dealing with different, some of us didn't even know they're the same company. But you only find out that the same company because they're putting the same engines into all these different cars. But it's a different packaging and communication. That's how you move. So that you recognize if you are on one street in town and that's where you're selling and you're trying to sell to a different customer segment, you have to move. Because where is your customer? Brilliant. Wonderful question, Millicent. In the 2 minutes I have left to answer this, James, if there's a disconnect between your product and the customer, what are the basic strategies one can do to fix this? Wonderful question, James. Today we're talking. Today we have done a good job in the questions that have come through. James, we look at you can see there module 2, what is called design thinking. Now, this is a process that every entrepreneur needs to become familiar with beyond. Familiar with. What do I mean by this? A process that everyone must be intimately involved with is talking to your customer. And I don't just mean surveys. I don't just mean that impersonal discussion that you're having on the phone. I mean this in that you go, James, and you actually speak to a customer and ask them, what do you like about our product? Why do you buy it? Or why didn't you buy it this month? There's an intimate discussion like we are having right now. Believe me, you are our customers at Centonomy. You are. And we cannot be able to build our product. The reason we're giving time for Q&A even through a session like this is because we need to hear from you. We need to hear what are the questions you're asking? What are the areas of concern? And if you don't continuously have contact with your customer, if you're separate from them, you cannot be able to engage. And so how do you begin to figure out how that match is going to happen? It is constant communication to your customer to ask them, what did you get out of this? Because what you believe people are getting out of it may be completely different from what you think. You think people are coming to you, let's use a restaurant, for example. You think people are coming to you because they like the taste of your food. Maybe they do, but maybe that's not the factor. Maybe they like the pricing of your food or the accessibility of the food or the affordability or a mixture of all those plus the taste. Your location, maybe the ambience of the space. And so when you begin to tune into that consistently, then you will change your language and your communication to ensure you're able to bring in the right customer, but you can also adjust where there are issues within the business to match the customer. We are doing currently a survey with one of our products where we are asking people who did not sign up for the program, why didn't you sign up for the program? Because we'd actually like to know and say, oh, it didn't speak to this issue, or it spoke to this issue, or I didn't have time, or I didn't have affordable. What was the reason that you came, you looked, you attended a webinar like this and you didn't show up for the class. We are actually doing that. Because when we get that intimate with our customer and understand it not from a point of ego, then we're able to match as we go forward. Brilliant question. Last question as we move to the next part of what we're discussing, diagnosing the business. So we started off by saying, is your product, let's put it back on the screen, is your product actually serving a customer segment? And I can see that question there, which is Hasfoa, sorry. I hope I got that. Hafswa. Ndeto. Yes? You're saying, what do you mean by customer segment? We mean a type or group of customers, all right, that you are directly addressing through your group of products and services, directly addressing. They are the ones who are most likely, who have already purchased or are most likely to purchase and be customers for you. That is a segment. And they also are the ones that are matched to a product or service that we have here. So the example that I was trying to use, Ndeto, for this was to try and say, Toyota has many customers. Toyota does. They have their mass market customers who buy their Toyota Corolla, which is one of the best-selling motor vehicles in the world, but it's a certain price point, certain area that is there. So they have that customer segment. But they have other customers, Toyota have other customers who like luxury, who like status, who like all those things. And so they put together a whole different brand within the same company, a completely different brand called Lexus, because they're speaking to a different customer. And you'll see this, we've done this even further, and you'll do it when you come into the program, where you can even identify a customer by name. So like in our organization, we have names for different customer segments. So when you see a person, and you can immediately recognize where they fall. Fundamentals, the vitals of what the business is. Excellent. Great questions, guys. I have to move on now. We'll have some more time for Q&A and towards the end. So remember, we talked about it as at the very beginning. We talked about that the aim of every business is to generate a profit. You're welcome, Deto. Is to generate a profit, correct? You do so by selling a product. That's why we had to address the product first. So yes, we're trying to generate a profit, but we must have a product that we're selling or a service that we're selling. And if that doesn't match the customers that we're dealing with, that's our biggest problem. So we need to take care of that product and service. Now, we go to the profitability question. When we say profit, it is such an important word because for many people, the definition does not work the way we deal with it. And so we must diagnose that as quickly as possible before we move on to the next thing. So can we deal with the profit issue? All right? In the chat box, in the comments, I'd like you to tell me, what is profit, ladies and gentlemen? Look, we're all entrepreneurs. You've heard it enough times. So I want to hear from you now. What is profit? And if someone is brave enough, they want to speak, they can do so. I'd love to hear your voice as well. What is profit? That's a good question, Rachel, in the chat. I'll come to that question as we go. Model for sure has been for one of my other talks that has been there. Excellent. I agree with you in a sense. I'm coming to that. You've jumped ahead, but the gains consolata. That's right. Sylvia is talking about the amount left. All expenses are after all expenses are catered for, right? So the value you have generated above the cost of producing, all the costs of producing your product or service. I am using specific words and I hope you're writing them down. I said the value generated over and above all the costs of running your business. Priscilla, In your response, I need to see it in all caps, the word all, A-L-L, all, because that's a huge functional issue that we're going to have. That's a big issue that we're going to have. And I want to show you what that looks like, okay? So let's have that discussion right now. And this is one of the illustrations we use in the class. So you guys are getting some leakage before we get there. And I want us to see it very clearly. Can I get it to the space that I wanted it to be in? Here we go. Good. So let's go back to 0, 0. If I sell nothing, I'm not going to make any money. It doesn't matter what I say. It's going to be there. All right. So let me expand this so you guys can see what I'm talking about. All right. This is an illustration of how we sell a cake. Okay. If I don't sell anything, I don't make any money. So if I was to sell a cake, one cake, okay, at 1,000 bob, all right, at 1,000 bob, I make 1,000 bob in what we call revenue. That's revenue, cash coming in, okay, cash coming in. Be very clear on the terminologies that you're using. Revenue is the cash coming in from a sale, okay, of either goods or services. So I sold one cake at 1,000 shillings. I make 1,000 bob. That's clear enough. I think we know that. So cash coming. But it didn't cost me 1,000 shillings to make that cake. The cake was not free. There were some ingredients. There were some things that went, direct costs that went into it. The cost of the goods that I was selling, whether I bought the cake and then resold it, or I bought the ingredients and then made it and then resold it, there are costs that went into it. Let's estimate it. It cost me 500 bob. Okay, let's estimate that. Let's take it further than that. So if I sold it for 1,000, the difference between the 1,000 I sold it for and the 500 bob that it cost me for the ingredients or the product that I'm actually making is 500 shillings. Now that is not profit either. Let's not be getting the terminologies wrong. And I'm moving quickly because I have to explain this, and we're changing the culture of business. It's not profit. It's called what? Gross profit. And that is a key differentiator. When you hear the word gross profit, it is so important that we understand it is not profit. Why is that, ladies and gentlemen? Let me explain. I love all the responses that we'll be getting this. Janet, I believe this content will be available on our social medias. I can hear you asking about that later on. But I just want to make sure I didn't have a question that I've missed along the way, okay? All right, so gross profit. If I sold one cake, I made a gross profit of 500 bob. Why? Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. The cake did not buy, create, and sell itself. I did that. The cake did not package itself. I did that. The cake did not find its way to market by itself. I did that. The cake, the recipe did not put itself together. I did that. The cake was not made in the air. I did that. It was made somewhere. There was an actual space in which that cake was created. The cake moved, whether it was the ingredients from the shops to my place, or a final piece that came to my shop. Something happened. There was work that went beyond that. There was thinking, there was management. There was all these costs. And so, ladies and gentlemen, please understand, if I sold one cake at 1,000 bob, I didn't make 500 shillings. In fact, I lost money if I only sell one cake. In fact, in this case, because we have calculated the other costs, all the other costs of running that business, I lost 49,500 shillings if I only sell one cake in my cake baking business. Because I have not accounted for the space in which I worked. And when I say rent, please, ladies and gentlemen, I can hear all the people say, oh, but I don't have a shop. I don't have an office somewhere. I work from home. Ladies and gentlemen, your home is free. You don't pay for your house. And even if you own the home and you don't pay rent, you don't pay taxes on that house, you don't maintain that house of yours is free. I'd love to live in your house, not free. There's a cost of the space that you're working in. There is. There's a cost for the utilities that are there. There's a cost for the transport that was going into doing all this. There's a cost for the marketing that went out. And marketing is not just Facebook boosting or a poster, all those things. Your time. You went and convinced a customer somewhere to do that. That's work. Ladies and gentlemen, in companies, don't they have sales teams that are paid for going out to sell the product? That's work. And then there's you. And this is the one that I'm trying to say, we are changing the culture of business in Africa, because many times as entrepreneurs, we don't value ourselves. We have a whole discussion when you come into the class about capital and where capital goes. But the mistake that we make, the mistake is not necessarily that you have to take the money out of the business. Like, for instance, when we tell people pay yourself a salary, people hear that and they're like, whoa, I'm going to take money out of the business. Yeah, there's a place for that. But what's worse, and I think hopefully you're going to get this, is if you don't account for that work. Because essentially what you're saying is you have not understood that this cake could not have come into being and been sold without your thinking, your processing, your work. And so you put a value for the work. Even if you don't take the money out, you need to account for it. That's what accounting means, to account, to show that it actually existed, that the cake didn't put itself together. There was work that happened to do that. And if you don't account for that, then you're actually maybe underselling your product or your service, like I was. When I was doing my production business before I came into Centonomy, I used to cost in our pricing for the services we are offering, I used to cost my work in the project. And I would put there a cost for the work in the project. I know I'm going to spend this amount of time in front of the computer, dealing with the customer, doing all those. So I was saying, well, that guy is paying himself. But I forgot in my business, I had to work to get that customer. And in my pricing, because I was pricing for a project, I never thought there was work outside of doing the project. There's work. There's banking, there's accounting, there's management, thinking, planning, strategy that I was doing that I never accounted for in our pricing. And so I was actually underselling my products and my services. Could you be underselling your product and services because there are some costs that you have not accounted for? On your piece of paper, write all, A-L-L, all costs must be accounted for, and you are one of them. Let me explain this, ladies and gentlemen, in words that hopefully will help you understand. You are valuable. You matter. You are not cheap. And I think especially as Africans, for too long, we have been cheated. And we are playing a game against people from different parts of the world, and we are being beaten because we do not value ourselves. We've been taught for too long. Some of our ancestors, even 2 generations ago, were slaves. Some of our ancestors, even 2 generations ago, were living under colonialism. It is likely that your parents, or you may be, depending on how old you are, lived under that. And so for a long period of time, we've been undervaluing ourselves. And it shows in our businesses because we don't think of ourselves as a cost. But I'm telling you here, ladies and gentlemen, you must write down. We are changing the culture of business in Africa. And this is one area we struggle with, valuing ourselves and the work that we do. So cost for it there. So if you put all these costs together, that's 50,000 bob in a month. And so if I only sell 1 cake in a month, I didn't make 500 shillings. That was a 500 gross profit. I lost 49,500 shillings because of all these other costs that exist, whether we've accounted for them or not. That's the difference in business. You are valuable, you matter. Put it there. So now, when we said we want to be a profitable business, now let's see what that looks like. It means that we have to surpass and be able to get to the point where there is a profit. So in a scenario like this, ladies and gentlemen, if I sell 1 cake, I'm still losing money. Let's say I sold, 50 cakes in a month. I make 50,000. I make 25,000 in gross profit. 50,000 cash came in, but I didn't make 50,000. I didn't make 25,000. I made a loss. Can you see here at the bottom, a loss of 25,000 that month, even if I sold 50 cakes. Can I show you an even more important space? If I sold 100 cakes, look at that. If I sold 100 cakes, look down there. At this point, now let me illustrate it differently. If I sold 99 cakes and I made 99,000 shillings in revenue, I made 49,500 shillings in gross profit, I still made a loss this month of 500 bob. If you do not know all your costs, you don't know if your business is profitable or not. And that's a fundamental. Just as well as your product or your service and the match between your product and service and the customer segment is key. The next part is, are you doing so? Are you offering that product and service profitably? And at this point, even if the company was making 99,000 shillings a month, it is a loss-making business. Because of all the costs, they're losing 500 bob a month. Now watch this. Watch this. 100 bob, 100 cakes. This is an important number. Look at that. I sold 100 cakes at 1,000 shillings. I made 100,000 in revenue. This company has not made 100,000. They have made 100,000 in what? Revenue. Because the cost of those products to get the ingredients or to get the product that you're going to resell is 50,000. So they made a gross profit of 50,000. But guess what? All the other costs, rent, utilities, transport, marketing, all the other things, my time, 50,000. That means at this point, I did not make a shilling, but praise the Lord, I also did not lose a shilling. In the chat box, what is this point called? Sumaya, please write it in all caps so everybody else in the room can hear it. This is called the break-even point. This is another thing that we are struggling with, ladies and gentlemen, because for many of us doing business, many of us don't even know what thank you for writing it in all caps for everybody to see. Many people don't even know what break-even is. And I'm shouting this from the mountaintops because if you don't even understand what game you're playing, people think that break even, and they're in this room. Put your hand up if you're in this room and you thought break even point was the point where you make back the money you invested in the business. Come on, thumbs up here. Come on. Hands up, hands up. You are there. You thought there. I told you they're in the room. So you are playing a different game from everybody else. Can you imagine that? Knowing that if you sold 100 cakes in a month, you are now the entrepreneur. If you've done this for your business, knowing that if I sold 100 cakes in a month, I have not made profit at all. At that point, I have not made profit, but praise the Lord, I have not lost profit. In the chat box right now, kindly, what would you give as the target for this business? Come on, type in the chat box. You're the manager of this business. What would you give as a target? Sylvia, look at that. Now you would set the target and say 200. Not, oh, Peter, stop being general. Peter, we are specific in business. Over 100 is not a target because over 100 doesn't mean anything. Okay, let's use Peter's example. Peter, I'm giving you a hard time. Peter, I'm giving you a hard time because you answered me. Sorry, I got very excited. But I want to show you why I'm not taking your answer seriously. Yeah? Here it is. Over 100 is 101 cakes. Good. I've sold 101 cakes. Good. So your business made a profit of 500 bob. Are you comfortable with that, Peter? Are you happy? You made a profit of 500 shillings. No. That's why when I saw no, thank you so much. That's when I saw Sylvia say 200. Look at that now. In a month, if I sold 200 cakes, then we make a profit of 50,000. Look at that. Now we are talking, because in a year, that means 50,000 times 12, that's 600,000 shillings in profit in a year. Now we're talking about a business. But at your example, we were talking about after working for a whole year, the business made you 6,000 shillings. 6,000 for a whole year's work. Come on, guys. But I want to take this a little bit further for you. And we get into the details of this in the class. But it's such a fundamental thought process. We cannot pass by this issue in these sessions that we're going through. Because if we don't do it, Caleb, to say a specific number for maximum profit means nothing. You have to be specific. Because if it's maximum number for maximum profit, Caleb, that I could say 1 billion cakes, but how do I produce 1 billion cakes? I can't. Even, can I explain, Caleb and everybody else, watch this. Even by saying 200 cakes, now my question is, the capacity of my business, since I'm cooking from this oven here in my house, because remember, this is a startup business from my house. My question is, how can I cook 200 cakes in my small oven? I can do 4 cakes every 4 hours. Can I be able to do 200 cakes in a month? I have to assess. And if I can't do 200 cakes in a month in my small oven, do you see now it affects another choice that I'm going to make as to whether I'm going to invest to buy a bigger oven? So specificity in business is the key. If you're specific, then you're going to have an outcome that you want to get. Let me tell you, if we get this, we're going to get our businesses right. And if we don't get this, then we're going to find ourselves in trouble. Let's move on. So I said that the aim of every business is to generate what? In the chat box. Listen, I'm a trainer. I don't just lecture so that people go home feeling nice. I want you to live with knowledge. What did I say? The aim of every business is to generate what? Profit. Thank you, Sumaya. Thank you, Priscilla. But then somebody, and I want you to write this under that just now. Who was it who said it? Somebody said it in advance before we were going to get there. Atsiaya Mudeu. Write it again for them because you got it right. The statement that comes underneath that is the aim of every business to generate a profit. But Mudeu, Atsiaya, write the next line for them again at the bottom there. I'll give you the chance because you got it. And anyone else who noticed what was written there before, I want you to write it there in the chat. Terrence, but profit is not your money. Profit is not your money. In this month, that this bakery business of ours made 50,000 shillings. The business made 50,000 shillings. I did not make 50,000 shillings. It's not my money. That money belongs to the business. And do you see what I mean by the fundamentals? Sylvia is asking such a wonderful question. Can you help us do this for our business? Like in details, 100%, yes. That is what the Centonomy Entrepreneur program is going to do. We break it down in detail. In fact, I'm about to give you an example of one of our class, one of the students who is in the current class, Sylvia. This is what we do in the class. This is what we spend time doing because every business is different. And so you need the fundamentals so that you can go and apply it to yourself, Sylvia. So in February, Sylvia, if I don't see you in the class, we can't help you. Because this is now our business. Our business is selling you the knowledge. So I'm just giving you a taste, Sylvia. I'm giving you a taste so that now you come for the full meal in February next year. We will help you to build this in detail. In fact, this is such, oh my goodness, this is the most simplified version of what we do. Because I'm trying to illustrate a problem, Sylvia. In the templates that we share in the program, we don't just share what we've seen here. You have multiple products. Then you also have tax that you're going to be paying. Then you also have other costs that are going to come through. When you're sitting in that class with the accountant, your mind will be blown. This is what we do in the class, Sylvia. So come in. Don't miss out. I want to see you in the class in February so that you don't say, oh, we didn't do this. Thank you, Mercy. You pay yourself a salary. But here's what I'm trying to say. Oh, Ndeto, look at what Mercy said just above your comment there. So in the class, we'll break it down. There are 3 ways that you make money from your business, but profit is not one of them. Profit is not one of them. In this month that the business made 50,000 shillings, I have made myself a cost. And therefore, I took home my 40,000 shillings. Now, whatever that amount is, it depends on your business and the outcome that is there. But this number down here is not mine. This belongs to the business. My number, if I didn't put it there. And that's the problem with many of our businesses. We've never seen it. So one way is to pay yourself a wage or a salary. Just like Mercy has said, Hafswa, Ndeto. One way is to pay yourself a salary or a wage, like what we're doing right here. The other way is called a dividend. Now, a dividend is not the same thing as profit. A dividend is a portion of the net profit at the end of the year, not every month. And you've heard of dividend before, and we get into this in the class. And the third way is by selling shares in your business. So when somebody else buys a part of your business, that's a major way in which people make money from their businesses. In fact, that's where you see people's bank accounts actually significantly shift. Before that, they owned an asset called the business, but that's it. So those are the three ways you get money from your business, not profit. Profit is not your money. And this is what I'm talking about when I say the fundamentals of business. And I'll keep talking about this until people get it. Because I knew that there were people like Ndeto here who are thinking, not everything in December, Sylvia. No, a dividend, which is a portion of the net profit. So people are thinking profit is my money, so every month they're taking money out of it. So the business has no cash flows. And then you're struggling month by month. So when we come into the class, now we're able to talk about that cash flow cycle. So we talk about working capital. We talk about keeping your eye on the cash every month. But also, if we cannot have that discussion, ladies and gentlemen, if you're busy thinking profit is your money in business. It's not. Told you. So we started off by understanding product. Does it match the customer segment? Ladies and gentlemen, when I use the wrong terminology, so you can also correct me after we've been learning. Because I'm not perfect, okay? So we've been doing this. So not product or service, but what? Value proposition. Does your value proposition match the customer segment, or are they misaligned and you're trying to align them? Because that matters. Because if you don't have a product that speaks or a service that speaks to the values that your customer is looking for, you will struggle to try and sell, and that's all you're trying to do. Secondly, is the business profitable? And the business cannot be considered to be profitable unless it has covered all, in capital, ALL, all the costs of running that business, which includes you. You are valuable, and we don't want you to fail. Just the same way that you don't want to fail yourself, we want you to succeed at business because you're putting in the effort. So we want to give you the tools to find that success. If we're going into it, don't know what profit is, don't know what your money is in the business, we can't have a discussion. Let's take questions on this before we do the last segment of today's session. So Rachel, how can you start again when you've been with, okay. Rachel, I'm holding on to that question for the last part of the Q&A. I'm taking questions that are directly in line with the point that we're doing, right? I'll come to it, Rachel. I've seen it there, okay? Millicent is asking, do you the P&L for every branch if you have more than one? It is not a bad practice. It's not a bad practice to have a P&L or an income statement for outlets. Because what happens is, this is a brilliant question, Millicent, right? What happens is, in a company that has multiple outlets, multiple products and different things, is that if you are unable to see the direct profitability, let's say, of one outlet, what can happen at the mother company level is that one outlet is doing really well and can be easily covering for the failings of one of your outlets or the failings of one of your products. Come on, this is something that even at Centonomy we've gone through, where we've seen some of the products and services that we've offered have been outperforming. And we could see that there were some issues in some of the other, and we were not making shifts in some of those product areas because there was so much cash coming in from one area, it was covering for the failings of another. So Millicent, it may be really important to be able to check on the profitability of an outlet or a specific product because it may be covered by the others. So what happens is, yes, you would have 2 or 3 P&Ls or income statements for each of the outlets in your case, and then the overall mother company one, so that you can tell where is there. This is, oh my goodness, Millicent, this is perfect for the discussion we're having about diagnosing your business. Because if you don't have enough detail, You cannot diagnose where the actual profitability issue is. Here's the medical equivalent of that. If they're taking an X-ray, it only gives you so much detail. But if they take a 3D MRI or CT scan, it gives you even more detail to find where the issues are within the healthcare issues that you're dealing with. So ladies and gentlemen, Millicent's question is, you have added to this. This is why we have discussions. We don't just have lectures. Even in the class, it's not just a lecture. We're having a discussion. It's being facilitated so that we're able to uncover some of these brilliant areas. So when you have more detail, a P&L from here, another P&L, and you can be able to see this outlet is not doing as well as this one, it's bringing in this amount. The overall company will have the total P&L, but that will give you the detailed picture on where to make the diagnosis of your business. Millicent, love it. We need this class for farmers, agribusiness people. Sometimes you plant e.g. tomatoes and you lose everything despite giving the project everything it needs. How do we make it a sustainable business out of an extremely volatile industry? Okay, first of all, I would say it's not necessarily a volatile industry. I just think agribusiness, we have not fully appreciated how it works. So agribusiness is, first of all, a global business, because if you think about it right now, food is sold globally. So you come into the market today and you'll find food from Egypt, fresh food from Egypt, fresh food from where? Israel. You'll find manufactured food from everywhere in the world in our stores here. So you're competing internationally. So let's understand the market right now. It's not that it's volatile, it's just it's global. And so, especially for agribusiness, the second thing is profitability that comes into play. If you are a small scale farmer, the profitability question is extremely tough because agriculture is a scale business. If we are unable to unlock the profitability at the scales that we're running, there are some issues there. And I'm telling you, there has to be a shift in the way that we do agriculture, especially here in Africa. If we have 1,000 people on 1,000 acres, that means everyone is farming 1 acre. Profitability is going to be very difficult unless you are doing specific high-end. Remember, we talked about customer segment, certain products that don't require that kind of scale and can be able to return profit. But yes, whoever wrote that, this was an anonymous question in the chat there. We are helping farmers because farmers, and even your timelines are not usually monthly. You look at quarterly or half yearly or even yearly, depending on the product that you're producing on the farm. And so you have to have clarity on your costs for a year rather than a month. So that's what we discuss in the Entrepreneur program, and you'll be able to do that when you come in. So brilliant question. Sheila Nyakenywa is asking, is there a certain percentage that you set to pay yourself through a salary? No. Guys, let me address this as firmly as I possibly can. Let me address this as firmly as I possibly can. When we value work, it is not percentage. The value of work is based on the outcome, the produce that is being done. So Sheila, when you suggest that I should consider a percentage to pay myself, it means I have not valued myself. Why is that? Let me explain. If I say it's 20% to pay myself, 20%, good. So if the business made, like in the example that we're doing, let me put that back up. Let's put that back up. I want to show you what that means. If the business made 50,000, then I'm supposed to pay myself 20%. Then that month, Sheila, I will take home 10,000 bob. What am I going to do with 10,000 shillings, Sheila? But it also adds to the, how would I put, the indiscipline within the business, because what happens in the month that I made, let's say, 1 million bob, and I'm saying I'm going to pay myself 20%. So I take out 200,000 shillings from that that profit or outcome that we're talking about here. And remember, I already said the rule is profit is not your money. So you don't pay a percentage, Sheila, you pay for value. So James here is valuing his work. And he's saying one of the ways, we'll talk about it when you come into the class, but one of the ways that we value the work is to say, for James, he said, if I was to hire someone who was doing what I'm doing in this business, how much would they take as a pay? What would be, if I looked at the industry, what would be an average pay for this person? So James can use that as a benchmark. We talk about that in the class. There are multiple ways that you can describe, you can come to the outcome of how much to pay yourself. But it is not a percentage question. That's not sustainable for you. And we're trying to get this business that you're running to be able to take care of you on a monthly basis. And if it's percentage, if the business is doing poorly, you do poorly. Can you survive like that? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, honestly, even in employment, because I know many of us in this room are employed. When the business does poorly, every month is different. When the business does well in a month, do you get paid more? No. Do you get paid less? No. It's that sustainability over time that we're trying to build. So it's not based on percentages, ladies and gentlemen. It is based on value. And I'm trying to get you to value yourselves. That's what I'm trying to get you to do. Okay. Ooh, hot questions that are coming through. Consolata, we don't have time to get into how do you determine the value of the shares in this business, but I want to encourage you that you are in for a treat when you get into the entrepreneur program, because we have industry experts who are coming in, and you can see module 10, they are raising capital. This is done by essentially experts in mergers and acquisitions. And we're talking about with international experience, experts in mergers and acquisitions who understand valuation of a business. So in short, let me answer you like this, Consolata, because I know people don't like to live with the answer to the question is you have to sign up for the class. So let me give you an answer, but then in the class you'll be able, I'm not even an expert in mergers and acquisitions. So I'm giving you the layman's explanation so we can work on that. I hope you understand, okay? So the thing you have to recognize is a business is not simply valued by the assets it holds. So like in James's bakery, the one we were discussing before, he owns an oven, probably a counter, a few other things. So there are some tangible things. We call them capital expenditure. We'll talk about that in the class, right? There are tangible things that are in that business. Maybe even a shop, maybe even a car. You have a couple of things that are owned by the business. Those only form part of the value of the business. So the capital expenditure forms part of the value of the business. But a business has more than capital expenditure. A business has the potential to generate profit. So when a business is being valued, accountants will do calculations and try and say, this business, let's say it's James's business, can continue to produce 600,000 in profit for the next 3 years. Okay, let's estimate, barring any changes that are going to go on. So in valuing the business, the potential for generating profit is also part of that value. So you add that on top. Okay. There's another area. I told you, this is why we have to come into a class like this, because there's so many things we have never considered before, Sheila. I want us to consider them in the discussion. When we're discussing now the value of the business, so we've considered the capital expenditure, the actual items that you own in the business, buildings, equipment, laptops, cars, all those things, those form part of the value. Then there's the potential for the business to generate profit. So you have to prove that it has been generating a profit, yes, for a period of time. So that goes into the valuation of the business. The third thing, and this one is so exciting, is something that is less tangible, but even more, that is powerful beyond what you can be able to think about. Write this down, Sheila. It is called brand. B-R-A-N-D. Brand. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. I was watching a documentary on counterfeit products, okay? And they were showing this whole industry in East Asia, so China, Taiwan, a couple of other major manufacturing countries in East Asia, where they have all the design elements for a lot of the products that we consume around the world, right? So they were saying there's the official company, like let's say Nike, for instance. Nike is a global brand, and Nike has a factory in which their shoes are produced, the actual Nike shoes. Now that shoe will cost you what? $100, $200, okay? Because it's original Nike. That's the power of the brand. It's the power of the what? The brand. Now down the road in some of these manufacturing areas in East Asia, they have the same patents because Nike is producing here. So somebody will steal the patent and simply come to this other factory and use the same patent, but they'll change one thing. They'll make the tick like have a curve at the other end and not call it Nike. They'll call it Mike with an M. All right. Same materials, same design, same functionality. But if you saw a Nike shoe over here and you saw a Mike shoe on this other side, or a brandless shoe that looks exactly the same, works exactly the same, why customers will buy this at $200 and this other one at $20 is because of that tick on the side of it and the brand name Nike. So there are some intangibles that go into the valuation of a business, such as brand. And they protect their brands. Businesses protect their brands like nothing else. That's why we don't do any of this content that we do just anywhere and we just give it to anybody. We put our content as Centonomy on Centonomy branded places. Because as Centonomy, that brand is powerful. Our Centonomy brand talks about over 14 years of experience in training people in personal finance, entrepreneurship, career development, wealth creation. And 14 years is not something easy to copy. The personnel, the type of content, the work, that all goes into the branding, Sheila. And all those factors together form the valuation of a business. It's quite a technical thing, and it's not something as an entrepreneur you're going to do by yourself. But to understand the principle so that when you're dealing with an accountant or you're dealing with a fund manager, like the kind of people that we're dealing with here, and you meet them when you come into the class, guys who've done deals, millions of dollars deals across Africa will be the ones training you in the class. When you come into that session, now you have an understanding. So you're able to say, oh, okay. So CapEx is this amount. Then we have this amount that we can talk about in terms of profitability over time. And the accountants will help you with doing that. Professional accountants are helping you who are also entrepreneurs. And then now we talk about brand. What is the value of your brand? And a brand that is 13, 14 years old is powerful. Just like that Nike brand. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, you guys, I knew it. This was going to be a fire session because it matters to us as entrepreneurs. And if we get it, we won't have to fail like the other 50% of businesses that fail within the first 5 years. That's not our story. We don't have to fail. You don't have to. And especially because you have the capability. You know how I keep telling people this. Do you know how I know that you have the capability for success and not failure? It's because many of us in this room are employees in other businesses. And you are the ones that are causing those businesses to be successful with the outcome and the skill sets that you are bringing to that place. It's only that they are being used within a structure that was built on a strong foundation, what we are discussing today. So we've talked today about, does your value proposition match the customer segments? And you'll have more than one customer segment. So please understand that. Secondly, is your business profitable? And even if it is not yet profitable, have you put into place a plan as to how you're going to get to profitability? Have you? Have you put it on paper just the way we did with this small business here on the bakery, so that you know, until I get to 100 cakes a month, I'm losing money. Over and above that, I'm making money, but I don't just want to make 500 shillings a month. Remember, it's not, never put a target like anything above 100. That doesn't mean anything. But I set 200 as the target because I want this business to be making 50,000 in profit per month, so that I'm making 600,000 a year, and then I can pay myself a significant dividend. We're in business, hey guys, we're in business to make money. We are. And we better get it right. So we understand that pricing model. Are we profitable? And I just want to remind you guys that these documents that we're showing you, they're not static. So like in the month that you're making a few less shillings, you also control costs. So these costs, these numbers down here also are not fixed. Well, we want them to be as fixed, that one to be as fixed as possible. But these other ones, can we be able to change? Even this one can change if it must. But this is a last case scenario. What are we doing? So let's take some questions around that before we do the last section. And I know I only have 10 minutes to do that, but we're going to do it. We'll complete in time. Bernadette, hey, that's what it is. Yeah. Listen, for service industry, Sylvia, it's the same. So in a service industry, let me just tell you, because we do that in the class, we have a whole, I just don't have time to get there, but I'll explain to you, Sylvia. When you're selling, what you're selling in a service industry is time. In a service industry, what you sell is time. And so, especially for consultants, you have to be able to value your time, and your time in the project, in your time outside the project. So up there, when you see the cost of goods, let me just show that. I didn't have the other one ready. Sorry, Sylvia, but I'll show you here. Here where you see the cost of goods, now you put the time, effort you've put into that service. So this is a cost of time per client or time per project, and you must value the time. Why I didn't do that is because when we talk about the value of time, now we have to value who it is. So it's a bit more complex, because think about it like this, Sylvia. A senior lawyer, someone who is even called senior counsel, can charge more than a junior lawyer who's doing exactly the same thing, but you see his value is higher because of experience. That's it, okay? So when it comes to the pricing part, you're selling time, but you have to understand whose time and how much you're going to be able to do. We have it in the class. So Sylvia, you're on the right path. We're going to get there. So we've done the cost of shares in business. Franklin was saying, what if you pay yourself a salary based on the business performance in percentages? I hope I've said that. Percentage does not work because it is not sustainable for you. Neither is it sustainable for a business. And okay, I thought this means that you have to keep discipline or making more sales to keep your salary high. No. Franklin, let me explain to you why this would even be an even poor decision if we go further. Franklin, we're talking about, we want us to get to the point where you can even sell your business. You can. Because the business is such an asset, people are willing to buy it from you. When you come across investors, so investors who are going to buy the business, or even, for instance, investors who are going to pump in cash to grow the business and allow you, and you'll repay it in terms of debt. When you have a changing cost within that business, it is not sustainable over time. And you're less likely to get funding for your business where you have not valued a factor of production like labor. So your work in the business is labor. If you want to talk about percentages, we can talk about percentages of a dividend. That's fine. But when you talk about labor, if you have not costed for labor, you're going to find it hard to raise funds and to sustain yourself over time. Because especially in tough times, then suddenly things can change significantly. So that's the idea around self-employment versus entrepreneurship. Self-employment, percentages and other things like that, but that's not for you. We are talking to entrepreneurs in this room, people who are building sustainable businesses, not self-employed people. Self-employed people do their own wonderful mathematics, but they can't sell that business. When they die, they can't pass that business on to their children. It's not an asset to them. So they're like employees. It's only they've employed themselves. That's not you. You are building a business that makes money. That's what I want for you. Excellent. What if business itself has small gain, like a retail shop that sells sugar unga? How do you gain much profit? That's a good question. So now we start talking about scale. So it's about simple. Look, if you're looking at products with small margins, where does profitability come from? Scale. So if it's a product where you make a shilling per, and it can be a profitable business. Let's say you make a shilling. Let's say you're making toothpicks, and we talk about this in the class as an example. That if you're selling toothpicks, the margins per toothpick are minimal. They're in cents, not even shillings. Okay, so therefore, for a toothpick manufacturing company, it makes no sense to try and sell 100 toothpicks. You will completely lose. So where does profitability come from? Scale. So you have to do 1 billion toothpicks for this to be a profitable company. So we talk about that in the class, even as we go forward. Brilliant questions. You guys are amazing. We're getting the last part, and then we take a couple of questions. The last part is this, ladies and gentlemen. So we talked about value proposition, customer segment match. We've talked about profitability and understanding that if you don't get that, you can't move on from there. And understanding that profit is not your money. Guys, if you get that, that's going to, and I'll give you an example of that as we go forward. The last part that we wanted to get into is the systems within your business. The systems within your business. What makes businesses especially successful over time is that they have a system that continuously generates value. Whether it is people in a service industry who are producing value consistently, or machines, or a production line that is producing value consistently, systems are key. So when you are able to align for instance, your supply chain systems, larger businesses, supply chain is a massive thing, but supply chain is also a massive thing for small businesses, especially if you think about it. What happens to this bakery that we've been discussing if the price of eggs and the price of unga increases? So supply chain becomes important, because if he can source supply chains from cheaper farms rather than going to the supermarket or anything like that, it begins to affect profitability. So that you begin to see, I'm starting my business, okay, so I'm only doing a couple of cakes per week, so I can buy from the supermarket and that's okay. But the moment I start hitting 200 cakes, then you begin to realize, wow, let's not buy from the supermarket because the margins there are too high. Let's buy directly from a farm. And then the supply chain issues and the system behind the supply chain issue become simple. Here's another area. Let's talk to those who are in service businesses, right? Many of us who are in the service business, me included, I used to think there's no one else who can do it like we. And that is true. They can't unless I train them. If I get a competent, talented person and I train them effectively, they can do what I can do at the level that I can do. This is the one that challenged me most from our founder, Washeke Ndwati, because you hardly will see Washeke involved in any of the stuff that we're doing now on the regular round programs like this. Why? Because Sheke has poured herself out into us, the trainers like ourselves, in the management team, into other people, so that we're able to multiply our time at Centonomy. She's multiplying her time at Centonomy because she has unleashed others into a space in which they can be able to thrive. But they cannot be able to thrive unless they are trained. And even till today, she's still training us as team members. Ask anyone at Centonomy. This past week, as we're getting into the new year, she's pouring herself out again into the team. Now, I know many of us in this room are saying, what if I pour, and this is the fear that everyone does, what if I pour myself out into Waithaka and Waithaka goes and starts his own business? Yeah, that's a risk you have to take, so you better pay Waithaka well. Okay? Yeah. Better pay him well so he stays. But here's the worst part of it. Here's the worst part of it. If Sheke never trained me to be a trainer, to be in the management team, then I would be working at Centonomy and I would be incompetent. and therefore I would be diluting the brand of the company. And it is a greater risk to do so than it is to train me and I go. Because if I'm here, I'd better be at the top of my game, building the company. If I go, I go. But while I'm here, let me be productive. Have you put in place systems to ensure a sustainable, continuous production of value within your company? This is what we're talking about. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. We can sit here and talk about all our fears and everything, but if we don't have the fundamentals within our business, we cannot diagnose the issue, because now many of you, look at this. All the questions that you're asking here in the chat box prove my point. Because I have shown you customer segments and value proposition, I've shown you profitability and how a business makes money and how you make money, not how your business makes money. And now I've talked about the systems and structures that allow for continuous production. Guess what? Suddenly, now you start seeing, oh, so this is where my problem is. Now Priscilla is able to say, my biggest issue is this. Now, because we have diagnosed your business. Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. I've only been speaking for a couple of hours. This is just a 2-hour session and it's almost done. When you come for 14 weeks with us, 1 class per week for 14 weeks, just 1 class per week for 14 weeks, that's how it works. You come in on either Wednesday, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or Saturday, 9 p.m. to 12 p.m. with other entrepreneurs. So the networking is amazing. The experience is going to challenge you in so many different ways. If you get into the class, you can imagine now how many times when you get that revelation, you can go and apply and begin to think differently. So the class runs once a week for 14 weeks for you, but we have 2 classes in a week. What does that mean? The same content that is taught on Wednesday is the same content that's taught on Saturday. So if you are unable to make it for the Wednesday class, which you have settled in as your community, you are welcome to come in on Saturday. If on Saturday, you know, I'm meeting a client or I have a family affair or something, you can be able to come in for the Wednesday class. So there is convenience for you. And we deliver it in the same way that we've gone through here, but with that difference, guys. When you're in the class, we send you materials. So these templates that you're seeing on the screen, you will receive, and you can be able to type in and use your part so that we're working together to build exactly. Somebody was asking, we need to do this for my agriculture business. We need to, yes, you will do it in the class. So I want you to make that choice and register today. It's a special registration fee. You'd be paying double, so you're already making a saving by registering today. If you're in Kenya, because I can see most of us are in Kenya here on the Zoom platform, but for those who are outside of Kenya, I'm going to give you the details just now. If you're in Kenya, M-Pesa is the easiest way to do it. Just 1,000 bob to 986850. Then the account number is your name and the word ENT or the letters ENT at the end there. Once you've paid, we will reach out to you and give you all the details of the class timings, the process, how you'll be onboarded. There's a whole system. We've got our team here, Ruby, who is our head of entrepreneurship. She's an amazing, amazing lady who is going to take you through this journey to get your business to greatness, okay? We do not want your business to fail. You are not a failure. If you can be able to learn these things, you will find that success that you want, all right? So you can take a quick screenshot of this so that you have the details there and make that payment today. We offer them during our events. Otherwise, if you come now, tomorrow and other days, you will pay 2,000 bob. But today, because you have come into the room, pay the 1,000 bob, you've saved 1,000 shillings, and then we'll help you on the journey of payment towards the class. As I mentioned, you can be able to make the other payments in installments, so you can start preparing yourself so that you don't have to pay the full 57,000 in advance, although we encourage you to do it. If you can pay in advance, it's even better for us. Cash flow management in business. But if you can't, and you're managing cash flow on your side, 20,000, 20,000, 17,000, so that you can be able to get there. All right. For those who are outside of Kenya, kindly take a quick screenshot so you have the details for the bank. Then you're going to pay $10, and we'll share with you the full fee plan for those who are outside of Kenya paying in US dollars, but it's $10 today for registration, $10, and then you can be able to work from that. So $10 for registration for those who are out of Kenya. Those who are in Kenya, use the M-Pesa details that are there. Guys, this has been amazing. And the questions interaction has been super. I really appreciate it. I want to take questions now. So you have the option of raising your hand. I'd love to hear your voices as well. Or I could be able to answer the ones that have been written here. All right. So Rachel had asked, how can you start again when you've been in a 2-year hiatus and still have some stock that you have? Okay, that's a really good question. And so I feel, Rachel, that your question is in 2 parts. I may be right, I may be wrong, but you'll tell me whether I am. Because it's not just an issue of stock. When it comes to starting again, it's even about the momentum, the human energy to get up and go again. And when we talk about the entrepreneurship mindset, we're just saying, is there an opportunity that's out there that if I take it up, I can be able to get? So we spend some time just talking about our mindset. Because listen, we have to address the human being. You are not a machine. If it's a machine, we just simply talk, here, do this, and that's it. You give machine instructions. You give human beings inspiration. I'm trying to inspire you, Rachel. If there's still a market out there and you're still passionate about the business that you're in, start again. That's one. Number 2, now it's to find the market, Rachel. You need to go out and see, is there still a market for that product? Especially sometime when there's some product that has been in case, a market may be another business that is selling a similar product or service that is there, so that they at least deal with the old stuff, the old stock. They already have systems that are in place. That might be a way to generate some cash that allows you to have the capital to get the business moving. So when we look about dealing with old stock, it's not just about finding a way to sell it directly, let's say, to a customer, so B2C. You might find that a B2B transaction at that point might be useful in helping you get out of the way. But most of the question that I'm feeling, Rachel, is how do you feel about it? Where's the energy and the impetus to get you to that goal? Brilliant question, brilliant question. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Oof, oof, I can see. Can I register now and then start paying installments from next month? Hafswa, in Deto. Yes, 100% yes, start, go ahead. Thank you for this session. It was really, for me, oh really, I run a home bakery. Yeah, and let me tell you, most of those home bakeries are not profitable because they are often run as a side hustle. So there's usually another income, whether it's yours or your spouse's income that's supporting it. So it's not a bad thing for extra cash. But if you're going to make it profitable, Liz, if it's going to be profitable, we have to have a discussion about understanding costs and the processes to get to market. Ooh, quite an eye-open. Really appreciate, looking forward to improving structures and systems in my business. I don't want to be self-employed. I want to be, Sylvia, you've got it. You've got it. You've got it. Okay. So make sure you've taken that. Yes. Susan, your challenge is eating profits. Yes, because you have never undervalued yourself. You've never valued yourself, and you've never put into place the structure to make sure you know how you make money from a business. If you're eating profit, it means you don't understand business. You're self-employed. Business people don't eat profits. No. Oof, you wait until you see. You come into the class, Susan. We are going to have an excellent time. Is the cost the same if I want to repeat the class? Susan, if you're a Centonomy alumni, you always get a discount. Reach out to Ruby on centonomy.com. You're able to get into it. There's no problem. We will help you. That's part of the benefit of being part of the Centonomy community. Unlike in the past, I have succeeded today in completing my assignment on time. Ruby, where are you? You need to clap for me. If you're in the room, I have done a job. Usually I struggle at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, the class starts on the 8th of February. So you have time to prepare and to plan for it, to make the registration today, and we'll take you through the journey of onboarding so that now you become the entrepreneur that you've always meant to be. Guys, do not play this game of entrepreneurship and you don't understand the rules, the fundamentals, so that you can diagnose yourself and the business that you're running. If you cannot do that, my friends, you're in for a contact sport that will knock you out. This has been a pleasure. You guys are awesome. We can't wait to start the. I'm telling you, we can't wait, because when we see the shifts happening in people's businesses, it has a knock-on multiplying effect. You succeeding means your family succeeds, means you get employees, that means that their families succeed. You as an entrepreneur succeeding means our nations will succeed. And that's our goal. May God bless you all. See you in class on the 8th of February. Register today. You don't want to miss out. Excellent.
Thank you so much, Waithaka.
Hey.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and just helping us to really understand how to run profitable businesses and the diagnosis that we need to do for that as well. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Have an amazing weekend and God bless you all.